Hi guys, welcome back to the show. This is the Michael Ellis Show. I'm your host, Michael, and today we've got Sean on the show. And Sean has previously held a virtual summit called the High Ticket Sellers Summit, and now he has his own program and geared towards sales, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So, High Ticket Seller Summit was a move that came from the idea that we wanted to actually learn how to run masterminds. And that was kind of the problem that we were solving. And we thought to ourselves, well, if we could put together a really awesome summit, it could turn into something that was really cool on the back end, which we wanted to try out running a mastermind for the first time because we heard a lot of people talking about that. Obviously, the Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and Russell Brunson connection, where they created the KBB launch. And then from there, we saw a lot of success off of that. And then all the other people from our network, they were just like, yeah, mastermind's a great way to do it. And so we decided, let's throw a summit. We happened to run into a really close friend of ours now. His name is Brad Langan, and he actually runs Virtual Summit Profits. And so we connected with him and partnered with him on running a High Ticket Seller Summit. We actually had Russell Brunson and some of the biggest names in the online space as headliners for the summit. And at the back end of it, we ended up running a mastermind, which it was a $500, $497 investment into the mastermind, and it ran for 12 weeks. It was kind of just our first attempt and trial at it, and we had just amazing success, and I was really grateful for it. And that kind of led us down into how do we really build like a very strong foundation and creating a mastermind system. And that became kind of the second leg of our sales ascension or sales ascenders business. Yeah.
So obviously there'll be a lot of people tuning to this at some point down the line or whenever they do on either YouTube or the podcast network. But do you just want to give a brief overview of how you got to that, essentially, because now we know a little bit about that. What came before that?
Yeah, great question. And first of all, thank you for having me here today, Michael. I'm really grateful to be on your show, and I'm a fan of yours. So first and foremost, 20 years ago, we'll go back. I came out of college, and the first thing I asked, I had one question on my mind. How do I make a lot of money? That was what I wanted to know. And so I called the only person that I thought that actually had made some money was my dad. He was master's in business, like pretty educated guy. And he built a little cookware business as import export. And so he had product and a warehouse and all this other stuff. And I started pushing a broom in his shop when I was like 7, and I kind of watched what he was doing and growing. I learned some work ethic from him and some other things. And so I come out of college and I call him and I'm like, hey dad, how do I make a lot of money, like boatloads of cash? And he goes, well, you got 3 choices. I was like, oh, great. What are these choices? A, are you a CEO? No, I just came out of college. I don't know anything. Okay, so that's not it. B, are you an entertainer? No, I don't know how to sing or dance or rap or anything like that, so not a fit. You better go learn sales. I said, okay, great. So I took a sales job. Guess what? So I was like the worst. Like, you want to talk about bad sales guy? Check this out. For my first 6 weeks, every day, 5 days a week, I'd make 80 calls and to book appointments. Like, that's what I was doing when I started. And that's 2,400 attempts on the phone to people I didn't know. How many appointments do you think I booked, Michael?
I'm going to go with a flat 0.
0! Like, yeah, so 2,400 attempts for 0 appointments. You can imagine how much frustration and anger and just hate filled into my body because I was like, why isn't this working? But growing up, I always had this mentality of like, don't quit, just keep going, like push yourself. I gave myself an 8-week window. So I was at 6 weeks. My boss comes to me and he says, Sean, you better go figure this out or you're going to get fired. And I was like, oh my gosh. So this was on a Friday that he told me this. So I run home and I pick up the phone and I call my dad. I'm like, Dad, this isn't working. Like, I want to throw in the towel. Like, what do I got to do? How do I figure this out? And he gives me some amazing advice. He says, go to the library and read a book. That's what he said. And I was like, are you serious? So, okay, I'll go to the library and I pick up a Tom Hopkins, How to Master the Art of Selling Stuff book. And I got to like chapter 7. And I remember reading this little paragraph and I was like, ooh, never heard this before. So I rented the book. I took it home, got in front of that mirror, and I started saying this line over and over and over and over and over again. And I was like, I got it. I memorized it. I say it in my sleep. I get up the next morning, I go to work, I pick up my phone, and that first call I get on, and I get to the place where I'm supposed to say this little line that I memorized over the weekend, and my hair on the neck stands up, and I'm like nervous as hell, and I'm like, ah! And I tried to deliver this line, and I butchered it. I completely messed it up. It wasn't even close. And but the guy on the other end was cool enough to say, oh, yeah, come on over Tuesday at 9 a.m. And I was like, oh, my God, I just booked an appointment. I was so freaking excited. And then I was like, I had to keep the cool face on the phone. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds great. I'll see you on Tuesday. And I hung up, and I started dancing around my office. My boss comes around and was like, hey, did you just make a sale? And I looked at him, I was like, no, I just booked an appointment. And he was like, oh, and he just stormed off, right? And so, but that moment in my life changed a lot for me, because I was all, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that there was this thing called the science behind sales. There's a science behind sales, and there's literally formulas and their frameworks, and there's all these things you can learn. And I didn't know that. Growing up, everyone said, Sean, just go into sales, you'll be fine. And I was like, okay. So I went into sales, and it wasn't fine. It took me like 6 weeks of just turmoil to get to a place where I was like, oh, there's a science. And that lit me up. And I said, you know what, setting that one appointment, the amount of just like release of awesome energy and feeling, and that moment in my life, I said, I want to do this every day. How do I do this every day? And that led me on a journey to like mastering communication. So over the course of the next several years, I invested $500,000, not to go to college, but to going to read books, to going to seminars, to hiring the right coaches, to really learning sales. And here's what I learned. When I first started, I realized you have to get into an appointment. So I said, okay, I learned all the framework you could possibly imagine on how to set up getting into appointments. So I built this little system. And then I started getting into a lot of appointments. When I got into those appointments, guess what? I sucked again, because there's this thing called a sales conversation that you have to actually know how to have. And if you don't understand it, then it's like, and you feel salesy, and it feels weird, and it's awkward trying to turn a connection into a sales conversation. All these feelings just kind of came up for me. And I was like, but wait, there's got to be some sort of a system or something that I can do here too. And so that's when I geeked out, and I learned like 40 to 50 different selling methods, selling systems, the frameworks, all this other stuff. And I tested a bunch of them, and I got to a place where I was like, okay, this one seems really good for me. And so I had this little system to get me into an appointment, and then I had a system to walk me through a sales conversation. And then I started to close deals. So much so to the point where I started earning a tremendous amount of cash as a young kid, but it took me several years to get here. And then I ended up buying my own electronics company in Vegas. So this was early 2000s when I bought my electronics company, and I moved, and there was from Colorado to Vegas, and there was only 7 employees that I started with, and I had a partner. So it was me, a partner, and 7 people. I was like, okay, I got to build this company too. So what do? I took that little prospecting system to get appointments, and I put it in this business, tweaked it around a little bit and make sure that it worked. And then it got me into some appointments. And the same thing. Okay, now I got the sales conversation, and I figured out like the framework I needed there. I was like, great. So now I was getting appointment into sales and into closed deal. So much so that I grew the company from $250,000 in revenue when I started to $8.5 million a year at the end. And I grew my base from 7 employees to 110. And I had like 1,000 sales guys that I built this network that were all reporting to me on a day-to-day basis. So it was kind of a mid-sized company doing okay. And I was away working with a company in California. Actually, Lockheed Martin was one of our companies we work for. And I was in the room with a bunch of these engineers. I'll remember it was like yesterday. We were designing this really cool like laser guidance thing that tracked missiles in the sky. It was so cool, like way above my pay grade, right? Like I'm not an engineer. I just know how to connect people. And I got a call from my business partner. He says, hey, Sean, like come back. There's an emergency. And I'm like, oh my God. So I ended up meeting, and it was a big deal. It was like a multi-year deal like that I was working on. So I had cut it off, and I came back early. And I go down to our facility, and I walk in, go into my business partner's office, and there's this guy sitting there in a suit. And I go, who's the suit, right? And because I don't like suits, that's terrible. That's why I quit the 9 to 5. I hate wearing a tie. And so my business partner says to me, he goes, while you were gone, I sold the company to him. And I was like, what? Like I own 47% of this company. How did you just do that? And he leans back in his chair and he goes, I own 53%. Sorry. And I was like, at that point, I got really angry. I was mad. I was frustrated. You can imagine how much, I built this company up like it was my baby. I had blood, sweat, and tears. Like I got there. I started drinking. I went way down in the bottom of all the liquor bottles that I could find in Las Vegas. And that led me to finding my now wife, which again, it's just weird how the world works. It weighs its ways out. And my wife says to me, she's like that kind of that rock. And I held on to her and she's like, yo, quit the drinking stuff. Go do something with your life. Thank you. So I was like, okay, what do I got to do? Well, I know sales. Let's take a sales job. So of all things, I chose, let's go sell roofing material in Las Vegas where it never rains in the desert. A great idea. Let's sell roofing. A great idea. It's like, okay, cool. So I went in and I started selling roofing material. And I took my little systems, I put them in there. In the first 18 months, I broke all the sales records they've ever had. And then I realized I hate roofers. I don't want to be here. And I was like, oh my God. So I quit. Like, it's like the only thing I've ever quit because I just didn't want to be around those people that I was serving. And that was like a big lesson that I learned that hit me a little bit later. And so at that stage, just like 5 years ago, my wife sees a Facebook ad. She's a little 19-year-old kid walking across the beach, no shirt on. And he's like, I just made all this money online. And my little internal voice, Sean's internal voice says this to him. He says, yo, if that little twerp can do it, like I can do it too. And I was like, okay, we're going to do this. So we went down the rabbit hole. It was a $99 investment. And then it was upsell, all the way up into like $10,500. That experience, I didn't like it very much. Like the upsell thing, I just kept getting upsell. And so I was like, okay, whatever. So we ended up buying it, $10,000 thing. And it was a MLM for medical grade water systems. And I never really played deeply in the MLM space at that time. I was just like, I like the product. I can sell this. This is fine. I don't know marketing. This guy knew marketing, little system. So we started running his little system and brought some people into our world. And because of my background in sales, we were able to like close a bunch of them and it exploded. We built a downline of like over 2,500 people that had invested over 10 grand with us. And then we built an audience of like 300,000 people. And all of a sudden, this whole army of people comes back to us and they say, Sean, Melissa, and Chris is our business partner. They say, your software sucks. Fix it. And we're like, whoa, like we didn't even build this software. Like we're just using it. And so all of a sudden we're like, how do we build a software company? Luckily, we had hired a coach, Russell Brunson. We were in his inner circle. I've been in his inner circle for years now. And he says to us, he goes, oh my God, meet these software guys. They develop software. And we're like, perfect. So we connected with them and we ended up building a software company. And that's what we got that award of right over here, wherever it is. It did $1 million in just over 10 months. And on the back end, we sold like $12 million worth of these systems through our software. And this whole journey, we're like going back and forth in the inner circle and Russell's watching our whole thing. And he says to us, he goes, Sean, I've been watching you now for years. I'm going to be the tough coach that says the really hard thing. You need to kill your baby. And I was like, what? This company's doing like 7 figures. How can you just, he's like, look, Sean, you hate your lifestyle right now. You're working 20 plus hours a day. You're serving the absolute wrong person. You're like a level 10 guy doing a level 2 thing. And the light bulb went off. I was like, and I remembered, I was like, I hated roofing and I hate these other people that I'm serving now. And like Russell went through the same journey for 5 years. So he's like, don't do what I did, make a change. And I was like, okay, we're coachable. We're going to make a change. Took us a year to sell the software company. And during that time, one of our other coaches, Alex Sharfin, says to us, what are you good at? We're good at sales. And he goes, guess what, Sean? All these online entrepreneurs, they suck at sales. You should go talk to them. And I was like, okay, great. So we started talking to 40 or 50 of these people. And then 5 of them raised their hand and said, look, we're not getting off the phone with you until we engage because we want you to help us build our sales team. So we showed them how to hire, onboard, and train salespeople because we thought that was the problem. That's what they wanted. That's the problem they want to solve. After serving dozens of those guys, here's what we realized. The problem that they said they had wasn't the actual problem they had. The real problem was there's this weight of this like invisible weight on their shoulders of, man, Sean, Chris, you just built this kick-ass sales team for me now. I have no system and I have no idea how to find the right opportunity to put on their calendar each and every day. And we're like, I didn't know that was a problem for you. And that was what we discovered after serving a bunch of them. And so here's what happened. So we were like, we have a little system. I've used it. Chris has used it. We've used it for years and years and years. We've tested it over thousands of conversations. Let's put it in one of our high ticket clients and see what happens. Gym coaching space. They were doing 30 grand a month, selling a $3,000 program. We put our little system in place. They went from 30 grand a month to 90 grand a month in revenue in 2 months. Huge, great, like bigger than double their company. So we're like, oh my God, it worked there. Let's try it again. Video marketing agency. Company was doing 40 grand a month, put it in there. And after 3 months, in fact, in 2 weeks, we helped her close $100,000 in deals. And then we moved it to 40 grand a month to now she's doing 250 grand a month every month continually. We're like, oh, so that small mid-sized company, we're going to try a bigger one. So coaching in the real estate space. And we found a company doing 400 grand a month. They had 8 sales guys. We put our little system in there and they went from 400 to 700,000 in just over 3 months. And we're like, okay, we've proved this enough. We proved it for ourselves. We proved it for a bunch of clients. Now we need to build something where we can serve more than just 5 people at a time, because that's what we're doing. And that was the birth of the High Ticket Seller Summit. That was the birth of, we want to test this mastermind concept and see if it really works. So we did the summit, and then we're like, this worked. And then our mastermind coach that we hired and paid tens of thousands of dollars to showed us the format and the structure. And then we launched our mastermind division, which we have still running to this day, which is just invincible. We started with 0, though. Like after the High Ticket Seller Summit, we're like, okay, we need to reset because it's still not the right person. And we started with 0, no list, no group, no anything. Put our little system in there, and we generated $100,000 in revenue in just over our first 7 weeks. And we filled up our first mastermind session. And there was only 17 seats that were sold into that mastermind session. And today, as of right now, 15 of 17 of those companies are having the biggest months they've ever had and continue to have. The 2 people that didn't do it is because they just didn't do the work. And so then I compared those results to the MLM space, and I recognized that 3% in the MLM space get results, where in this mastermind concept, 15 of 17 are getting humongous results. And I was like, this is it. We're on something big. And so right now where we're going is the development of our new software. We found a developer who's been working on a program for the past 3 years. And now literally we've been wrenching really hard on it for the past 6 months. And we're going to do a big launch in April with our software. But literally that's my story, man. That's where I'm at. So, that's a long one, dude. Thanks for listening.
That was a fairly long one. Jesus, I wasn't expecting that to be so long, but there's a few points in your journey that I want to just like clarify or
please
pull out a little bit more about the experience of the journey. I mean, you said you personally have been coached by Russell Brunson because you're part of his inner circle. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So how did you get into that? What were your journey briefly up to that point, and what's it like inside that circle of entrepreneurs and business people that are inside there?
Yeah, so I'm sure you know what a flea on a dog feels like that little tiny thing. So when you walk into that room, that's how I felt. I felt like a little flea amongst all these big dogs doing amazing things. And I was like, whoa, this room is powerful. Like you could just walk in and feel it, right? And so how did we get there? When we first started with that little piece of software when we started building our big tribe of 2,500 people in our downline for the MLM, we started making a bunch of money, and we wanted to get a little bit more automation inside of the software that we were moving with. So our coach at the time, his name was Brandon Odom. He says, go check out this guy named Russell Brunson. He looks like he's 13, but he seems to know his stuff. And we're like, okay, cool. So we went and we geeked out and we watched a bunch of his webinars and we went through all his thing. We bought a ticket to Funnel Hacking Live way back when it was in, I think Dallas, Texas was the one we went to, the first one. And we showed up there. And we went in that whole big room, and there's like 1,000 people in it. I think it was kind of smaller than what he's doing now. And we're like, whoa, this is so crazy. It was different energy that we were feeling. It was just like he knew how to build culture, tribe, community. That was something we'd done before, but there's a lot of pro tips that we took from him and put into our world. And we were like, oh my God, this guy seems to get it. He knows it. And so we literally started buying everything in his value ladder, like boom, 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 10,000, 20,000. It was crazy, right? And all of a sudden we went to this thing called Funnel Hackathon, where Steve Larson was delivering, hey, here's how you build an offer, right? And he was first part of teaching us that. And so during that time, there's a girl, Mandy Keene, is one of the HR specialists inside the ClickFunnels organization. She kind of runs memberships for the Inner Circle. We had given our first kind of presentation, and she came up to Melissa and myself, and she goes, man, you guys are pretty awesome. Like, would you like a seat in the Inner Circle? And I was like, yes, I don't care how much it costs, we'll figure it out. Like, that's because I knew, we teach three things. We teach mind work, we teach skill work, and we teach network, right? In that order: mind work, skill work, network. Network, right? Why did we buy a membership into the inner circle? Because it's 50 grand a month or 50 grand a year is network. We knew that we can connect to some of the best people on earth. And that was how we got there. And so literally we showed up for our first one and we walked in and we'd been doing pretty good. I mean, like our little MLM company was paying us like about $500,000 a year. And we're like, this is pretty good. We're doing all right. Like we got some cash flow. And we went in there and we went on stage. And we were one of the first people to go. And we're like, yeah, we did pretty good. Here's our numbers. And we shared, like we made this money, profit, and all this other stuff. And I thought I was kind of like big in my britches. And I sat down and I watched all these other guys go on stage. And they're like, oh, we did $10 million in our launch last week. And we're doing this one. I was like, oh, totally mistake. Like should not have said any of the things I said on stage, right? That's how I felt. But yeah, that's kind of how we got there. Being in that room is.
I want to say it was a mistake. Like if you're going to be in that sort of environment and be the actual underdog, walking in there, knowing that it's going to help you out dramatically, you still want to be as open as possible in that situation and be like, yeah, this is what I've done. Yeah, it's nowhere near as mountain as what you've done, but I'm still here. I'm still part of this tribe. I'm still learning. I'm still part of something bigger and wanting to improve.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the secret, right? The secret of showing up, the secret of being persistent, right? And consistently doing the thing is the secret to winning, right? I remember when I first, I dabbled in an MLM prior to being in the online one that I was on. And I went to one of these big conferences and I was standing in the back watching all these, there's like 50,000 people in the Georgia Dome. It was crazy. And watching these big hitters go up on these stages and talk. And one of these big guys was in the back with me and said, what's the secret? He goes, Sean, I'll tell you the secret. He goes, I've been in this game for like 25 years. If you want to beat 97% of everybody in your industry, all you got to do is keep showing up. And I was like, that's it? He was like, yeah, that's it. And then he walked off on stage and did the most amazing presentation ever. But I was like, wow, that was like really like profound, but so simple. I was like, just keep showing up. And so like with the inner circle or with any of these other, like Joe Polish's Genius Network or War Room or all the big masterminds that are out there, Tony Robbins got one for like 250 grand. Dean Gaziossi's got one for 100-some thousand. The way that you kind of show up in those places, and as long as you keep showing up, you have to earn it. You earn the respect in those groups by showing up, doing the things, and just making it happen. And so it took us about 2 years in the inner circle when we first started to literally just say, hey, we're here, we're not going anywhere, just like you said. And then all of a sudden people are like, you guys are awesome, let's connect. And then now we go fishing in Alaska with all of those guys once a year. It's awesome. So
I bet that does have an awesome feeling.
Yeah.
Attached to it. Just going fishing with, like going fishing with your friends, but really high level friends.
Yeah, I mean, because the conversations are different, right?
Yeah. I can imagine
I think there's kind of three levels. Sorry.
That's a good point there, like you just pointed out there. Like, so now you obviously have your own mastermind, but obviously it's on a totally different scale from what Russell's is on. So the conversations that you have or your members have is going to be a total different level of conversation than what you have inside Russell's mastermind. What's the dynamic like? I mean, yours is built around sales, and his is not built around sales. So there's going to be that differences anyway. But surely there's a notable difference that you can point out between.
Yeah. So the big difference is, the members in our mastermind, we're focused, like you said, on one specific problem, and that is the lost art of prospecting and sales. And so like our mastermind, it's a 12-month long program. In the first 12 weeks, you get our little prospecting system. We make it custom in your business, but then we don't want the entrepreneur running it. So we show you everything you need to hire a virtual assistant with all the SOPs and everything else. So now they're running your prospecting system and filling up a calendar with the right people. Okay. And then the remaining part of the year for 9 months is we help everybody master the sales conversation. Right? We've developed a 7-stage formula of how to basically be in any sales conversation and navigate into the right direction. And so there's no upsells with our mastermind. It's literally like just the investment, and then you go for the entire 12 months. By the end of that 12 months, here's the problem we've solved. You have a calendar that's completely full each and every day, every week, and you have a way to master any and all sales conversations. So that's the focus. Now, if you look at the inner circle mastermind, what's the big difference? The format. So when you go into that mastermind, what you do is everyone sits around, and then what Russell did was a genius, by the way. He said, because these guys are so high level, we're going to have each one get 15 to 20 minutes on the stage. And so you go up and you present to the other inner circle members. What do you present? You say one thing that's going really well in your world. You give some practical results of how to prove that what's going well in your world. And then you ask one question for help. And this question could be anything and anywhere. And so like these big time entrepreneurs that are doing, 8 figures, 9 figures, like huge numbers, the questions they ask are totally different than anything that would ever be asked in our mastermind, simply because they're experiencing a different problem, or they're having a different pain that they're trying to solve or get accomplished. And so the conversation that's generated, because after each person in that mastermind goes on the stage, Russell created this thing called the walk and talk, where it's literally like you grab somebody of interest, whether it be the person on stage or just somebody else in the room, and you walk around like the tables, pretty big room, and you just discuss like, hey, what's the thing you're challenging? What are you challenged by right now? And you literally like talk and connect with everybody in the room, and literally you're like, oh, I can connect you here, I can help you there, I can do this. In fact, I can solve that problem for you, whatever they have. And so you learn that, but then so it's just a different conversation, different setups, different format, solving a different problem.
And like you said, like the questions are totally different.
Yeah.
Yep. But is that just because of the difference in topic, or just because, or is it because of the difference in levels between, like, I hear a lot of people turn around and say, well, like billionaires and high end millionaires and 8-figure earners and this, that, and other, they have totally different questions and in what they're trying to work out than what a 6-figure earner would have, because
yeah, I mean it's like
it's betrayed as because they're further on, the values other things than what 6-figure earners do. But I don't see it that way. I see it. I'm not a multimillionaire. I'm not this, that, and other person. But I don't see it. I see that they have them questions because they no longer have them problems that 6-figure earners have, or no longer have them problems that startup entrepreneurs have. Yep. Startup entrepreneurs and 6-figure earners have this problem of that they need sales. They need systems and processes putting into place to get them to where these 8-figure people are. And so obviously they're not going to have the same questions. But I see a lot of people out there that I turn around and go, these 8-figure earners, they're worried about a productivity hack that's going to increase their productivity by 5% or whatever they're turning around and saying. And then they're putting it in like the same post as, that's what you should be focusing on as a startup and entrepreneur. Like, no, I don't see the relation between the two personally myself. But do you see that sort of gap between the masterminds? Like,
yeah, yes, I think you totally nailed it, right? And so, for example, if you're just getting started building your first 6-figure thing, or you're moving in that direction, what you said was perfect. It's like, do you have a formidable offer that somebody wants, right? And do you have a system to find people, and then a system to convert people so you can solve the problem, make an impact? When you have those systems in place, what's the next question? We build businesses to create lifestyles. We don't build a business to become that lifestyle. Like a lot of people, when they're first doing it, they have to wear all these hats, right? When you're a solopreneur, you're doing everything and anything. And so as you get through wearing some of those hats and you get pretty efficient at it, The next thing is like, holy shit, all my time's gone, when time is the only valuable resource that we can ever get back. So I think there's a point where you get to a place where money, the amount of cash flow coming into a business, supersedes any of the needs and wants and that you have. Then the next thing is what's most important? Well, I think the equation is a little bit mixed up, but time. How do you get back your time? And so all these people that have reached a level, and all it is how long your journey's been, right? That's the persistency. This is the conviction of what you're doing and consistently showing up and moving forward. And it's like, wherever you're at right now, you can't compare yourself to somebody that's 5 years in front of you or 10 years in front of you. We all know how fast technology changes in a year, right? So the whole concept is like, you got to get through the basic intro questions first, like you said. And then when you get there, you're like, how do I get my time back? And then that's when those little efficiencies, hey, if I can get 5% back here and I can get 3% back here, and that's what those people focus on most of the time, because that's where they're at in their journey. And so when you said, I love what you said, because it's like, if you hear what these 8-figure guys are doing, and then someone says you should do the same thing, like, I don't believe that at all. I believe that you need to look objectively, like take a snapshot of where you're at in your business and measure it on the 5 pillars, right? The 5 pillars. First one is lead gen. Do you have a system for lead gen, right? Lead nurture is the next one. How do you, once you've broken the ice with somebody cold, how do you warm up the relationship to get into the third part, which is conversion, right? How do you speak with those people? And then it's fulfillment. Do you have fulfillment systems? And then lastly is retention and resell. And if we can agree on those 5 things, the most important is you probably should start at the beginning. Lead gen, lead nurture, conversion. But you got to have something you can sell them, right? And I think that's where like our schooling system gets a little bit mixed up too, because they always teach build the widget, sell the widget. In fact, what I learned from Russell Brunson, he said, build the idea, sell the idea, then build the widget. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't learn that in school. I learned that in entrepreneurial, go learn from Russell Brunson school. So
what does it mean by build the idea? Does that mean just like build the concept, but don't actually build out internalize it?
Yeah. So very simply, right? So if you're just getting started and you're like, I have this idea. Everybody has a lot of ideas, right? But the only person that can validate an idea is going to be your prospect or your client. So if you have an idea, here's the strategy. Instead of spending hours and days and weeks and months and years building the thing and then trying to figure out how to market it, take the idea and go discuss it with 40, 50, 100 people that you think might buy the thing. Here's what you're going to find out. Those 40, 50, or 100, and don't try to sell them anything. Just ask them questions. Do your marketing research. This is where it should all start. And then these people will say, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this. And over the course of interviewing 40, 50, 100 of them, guess what you're going to find? You're going to find trends. And so what I say is look for those trends, find those 4 or 5 things that everybody said in that conversation. This is what I'd want. And when you have those 4 core concepts, that becomes the offer. That becomes the main part of the offer that you put together. And then you throw some bonuses on top. Now it's almost irresistible because all 100 of those people said those are the 4 things. And there's a couple of extra sweetness on top. And so now you have the offer. And now we're like, okay, what do we have to build in order to like deliver the most minimum effective dose to get somebody a result? And we take those 4 things and then we give that to either our team that's going to do that or we do it ourselves. And then we say, great, now let's go get people involved in the program. And so that's why I say create the idea first, go get the marketing research done to back up that the idea is valid in a marketplace wherever you're selling it, and then literally sell something to somebody and then fulfill it. Don't spend years building a thing and then say, this is the greatest thing ever, because what comes out of your brain is not what comes out of your prospect or your client's brain, and then try to go sell it because you'll probably fail.
Agree. I 100% agree. So I'm moving towards what you actually do now and how you help people. What does a typical client journey look like for one of your clients?
So a typical client journey, when they enter into our world, it's somebody that is already selling to other businesses. So I only deal in business to business, simply because I've played in the business to consumer market. I've played in the business to government markets. The business to consumer, the people I don't really like as much in terms of me serving them. And the business to government, those contracts usually take way longer than necessary, right? So that middle ground for me is business to business. I also believe there's the most liquid money in that market out of all of the other ones that are out there. So that's why we chose that one first. So business to business, they have to be have a business that's at least been around for a year. Look, I don't really want to work with somebody who's, just getting started, because they need to kind of stumble a little bit through some things. And that will help them harden their mindset and get a little bit of armor on them. And then at that stage now, okay, this is a good fit, right? Typically, North American market is who we play with. And then, so like coaches are really good for us, consultants, sales professionals, like those people are great. So wherever they find us and they enter into our world, like how do we serve them? What's their journey? We build a relationship and we connect. We've been doing this a long time. We have a really deep network. And so we want to meet with people first. So here's how we do it. We invite people from a cold outreach. So we have a system that literally filters out those people that we're looking for. Secondly, now we take those people and we invite them to join our tribe. Think about front door, back door analogy here. So your front door is what your social properties look like. What's your Facebook, your Instagram, all these other things, look what they look like. They got to look synonymous. They got to have a brand that's pretty similar and look pretty good. This is your front door. Your back door is your group. Where does your tribe congregate? Could be we use a Facebook group because right now we know in the landscape of social, like Facebook groups are the best ones that are out there because we looked and tested. And so we invite people to come into our backyard, come into our group. That's our first stage. Once they get in there, we give them a couple of compliments. We talk to them a little bit. We say, man, you're doing some amazing things. And we actually look at what they're doing because we only want to work with people we like and trust. And then we say, hey, let's jump on a connection call. The connection call is really about a couple of things. First thing, how do you use Facebook groups in your world? Second thing, I need to be sure, because you're in our family now, that you have a system that gets you clients and you like using that system. Because if you don't, I've been doing it for 20 years and I'm pretty darn good at it. Probably help you. And then lastly, I want to share our referral system because I have a deep network and I want to connect you with a bunch of people. So we get on a call like that, just a connection. I ask a few questions. And then if we find that they have a problem that I solve, and this is one of the biggest things that anyone can take away from this meeting today, identify what the biggest problem is that you solve and be able to verbalize it in like nine words or less in one sentence. Because when you can say, hey, are you struggling with finding new clients? Do you have a system that you love that puts new clients in your business each and every day? I can say those sentences and people, it hits them and they're like, no, I don't, or yes, I do. And I'm like, okay, great. Tell me more about this. Why haven't you tried? What have you done? And we go down this path and I recognize, yeah, I can solve the problem for you, or you have it solved already. Either way is fine. Doesn't matter to me, right? Because now you're in my network. At some stage, you're going to hook me up with somebody I like or trust or whatever. And then from there, it's like, if they are a fit, we'll get them started in one of our programs, whether it be a mastermind or course done for you, sis, whatever. And if they're not a fit to work with us, that's fine. They're still in our network, because our underlying goal, our cause for what we do at Sales Centers is to end world thirst. So every time we host a mastermind session, okay, we fund a clean water drinking well in a third world country. In fact, we just funded our fourth one like a week and a half ago in India. Awesome, right? And we know now that there's 800 people a day that can drink water every single day. Now, here's why we did that. We know that it's going to take $20 billion to end world thirst completely. I don't think I can build 20 billion on my own, but I connect with people like you, and I connect with people that are awesome entrepreneurs, and we get in this cause. Guess what? That's an impact the world needs. And so that's what our tribe rallies behind. And I think when entrepreneurs get started, they're like, oh, I just got to make a buck. Think through cause-based marketing. What's the cause? Yes, you want to build a lifestyle. Yes, you want to make the cash flow, but what's the big impact, right? And when you have a bigger vision and you can cast a bigger net, people want to follow you, or they want to join your tribe, your movement, and your cause.
That's awesome. Nice. That is awesome. So you have a course then? You do have a course as well as a mastermind?
Yeah, so we have a course. And literally what our course does is it teaches you the prospecting system. It's called CORE. It stands for Cold Outreach and Engagement, right? And we've tested it against paid ads. We tested it against challenges and summits and all this other thing. Pound for pound, it blows all of them away. It's why we call it the core, is because it should be the core of everybody's business. And once this is running, you should never turn it off. But then you should also it's an and strategy. So a lot of people say, oh, there's all these traffic strategies. You could do Dream 100. You could do joint ventures. You could do paid ads. You could do whatever else there is, like publishing. There's the thing that just gets on my nerves is this organic posting, asking a question, waiting for people to respond, and then getting into a conversation with them and then closing a deal. Unfortunately, that doesn't set up filters and friction points to get the right person for you. It works. It's a little bit slower, but it doesn't set it up quite right. So what we do, we actually have, and experts and psychologists say 7 to 12 touch points in order just to create the likability and trustability. You knew that stat. You're nodding your head, right? So we said, okay, we're going to put that on steroids. We have a 24-point touch system that we share as a template, and then we make it custom into each and every business that we work with. And so that's what the course does. It shows you exactly how to take that templatized version, make it custom, and then outsource to the work of doing the prospecting to a VA. And here's what I'll say about this. Prospecting is like the highest value or one of the highest values in a company, but it's low skill. And so this is why entrepreneurs are like, oh, I don't want to do prospecting. That just sounds like a pain in the ass. I don't want to spend the time doing it, because it's high value. They know they need it, but it's low skill. They would rather spend the skill level where it's high skill. We don't want an entrepreneur that is a high skill brain running a low skill thing in a business. That's why we say, yo, get the system and then have a VA run it for you so that you're not doing the high value, low skill work. And now you can just start working on things like conversion. And so that's what our course teaches. And then our mastermind, we actually walk through this whole entire same system, exactly the same system, but we have like a very high level of accountability. We have connection. And here's what's really cool about the system that we teach. Not only does it find clients, but it will also find opportunities to do guest speaking on podcasts like this. It will find opportunities to join into joint ventures. It's found opportunities for us to partner with people who do software stuff. And so this is why a lot of people think like, oh, I don't want to do sales calls, salesy. Connection call, right? If you look at the definition of connection and sales, what you'd find is that a connection call can include sales. It's like building an offer. And so like if the whole thing is the connection call is what we're focused on, inside of that connection call, what's the framework? Well, I want to share value 1, value 2, and I want to talk about the problem I solve. And it's our connection call. That's our whole format. Now it's an offer. And then it's easy to go out to a cold prospect and say, hey, like this is what I want to talk about. This is going to value you a whole bunch. Are you open to it? Little to never do you ever get shut down for that. Like it works really well. It's kind of what our stuff teaches.
I do like that. The idea of a connection call instead of a sales call is awesome, because to be quite frank, you don't know where something's going to go. If it doesn't go down the route of sales, then it, like you said, it could lead to something completely different. It could lead to a joint venture. It could lead to a podcast episode. It could lead to a collaboration of some sort.
And those things will create more deals and more business than you could ever shake a stick at. So it's like, that's why cold outreach and engagement and nurture, we're the nurture kings. We know how to nurture people better than almost anybody else in the space, just simply because we've been doing it for 20 years and tested it thousands of times. And we understand that what the results bring are so fruitful. People just don't want to go do the work because it can be a little bit lower skill. That's all.
So you said you've got 17 people in your mastermind.
That was our first session. Yeah.
That was your first session, and 15 people are having great success. You said 2 of them are not having so much good success because they're not putting in the work.
Right.
Why do you think that they didn't put in the work?
I know them personally, and so I can just share that, like, life situations, excuses, just lack of wanting to succeed. It comes from maybe partially being in Burnout Alley. Like, Burnout Alley is a real place. I lived there for 2 years, to the point where I was driving down the highway and I saw a tree and I was like, what would happen if I did that move? And I was like, I stopped my car and I got out and I just put my hands in my face and like this. And I was like, what was I even thinking about? Like, that's the most negative thought ever. But burnout's a real thing, right? It took me a long time to climb out of that. I had to find a doctor to help me. So, but yeah. So, I mean, I like, the reason that people don't do whatever they don't do is because, and I'll bring it down to one thing. It's head trash, right? See, because entrepreneurs believe They have to do everything right now. Most people don't even understand. I would say they overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 5 or 10 years. And I would challenge you, if you're listening to this right now, go back and think about your last 5 years. What did you accomplish? It's probably significant. Compare that last 5-year period to the last year period, right? So if you overestimate what you can do in a year, that leads to burnout, because guess what? You're going to be doing the task, try to hit the goal, and you're not going to hit the goal, and then you're going to feel like shit. And that sucks. However, if you say, you know what, like this, my 5-year vision, my cause is to end world thirst. Like that's a yearly, multiple year things. Like, what do we need to do to generate $20 billion? Well, we got to build our own business, A, but we also got to connect with a bunch of people, B, so that we can like literally create the funding source to go do that. So that's why I say it. Like the 2 people that didn't fail is simply because they didn't do the work for their own reasons. And it's usually in the head, or they overestimate what they can do in a year.
Awesome. So that kind of brings us to a close. I think it's been 45 minutes. I wanted to keep this under half an hour, but you know, it's been such a lovely episode. And it's been fantastic. Your journey is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And I think it needed that extra time, that extra 15 minutes than just keeping it under the 30 minutes. You had a lot of knowledge to share, and you had a lot of experiences to share. Like, there's no possible way I could have kept that under 30 minutes. It would impossible.
Thank you for going over. I appreciate it.
So, with that being said, if you want to step more into Sean's world, then if you visit michaelelisonline.com/go/Sean Malone, that will send you over to Sean's Facebook profile, where you can add him as a friend, get to know him a little bit more, join in with his content, what have you. What I will say is that probably if you're going to add him as a friend, you're going to get a message.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, and that's part of our system. Really,
exactly.
Like,
that's the reason why I was saying it. Like, expect a message to come if you're going to send him a friend request.
Please do.
Because
I encourage you. I encourage it. I love connecting.
Like I said,
go ahead.
But like Sean has said, it'll be a connection conversation more than what a sales conversation is anyway. So it's nothing to be scared about if that sort of thing worries you. And yeah, it's just been an awesome conversation, dude. I've loved every minute of it. So once again, that's michaelelisonline.com/go/Sean Malone. Links in the description below and on the show notes on the podcast. And that will take you straight over to Sean's Facebook profile. Mainly because I didn't have another link for you, so that's the only one that could share. Do you have a website?
Yeah, it's just salesascenders.com, but it's better to just connect with us through social. That's the easiest way to do it, on Facebook specifically. So just go look up Sean Malone on Facebook, or go to links, probably better choice. And just hit it, add my friend request, send me a message, say, hey, I saw you on Michael's podcast. I'd love to talk. And then literally let's just go from there. That's super easy. Yep. Perfect.
That'll do then. That will do. So like I said, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for tuning in at home, guys, and thanks for listening on the podcast. And we'll see you on the next one.